Fayetteville State, they're never sexy, but they won.
Sometimes we have to eat our crow. And I got to eat my crow this week, okay?
Doom alert.
Yeah, we're back at Heartbreak Hotel, and we're checking back in.
What's up, good people? Welcome back. This is the HBCU Game Day D2 Football Show with myself, SJG, and the one and only Chris Ferguson, a.k.a. D2K Ferg, a.k.a. the Prophet of Doom, a.k.a. the man about town. What's going on, Chris? How you doing today, man?
We're back. I'm excited. We're back.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we are back again for season 2 of the show where we highlight HBCU football at the Division II level. Obviously, that's primarily the two leagues that we have, which is the CIAA and the SIC. So for those of you who were around last season, you're kind of familiar with the format. We will have our good friend Kendrick coming in from time to time for sure to give us the good word on the SIAC, his expert analysis, and then other times you'll just be stuck with us getting, kind of mixing it all together. So, Chris, man, we are into the 2024 D2 football season. First off, before I get into that, please, everybody, make sure you like the stream if you're on YouTube, if you are on Twitter/X, Twitter. We're going to be on there for a little while, and then we'll switch over to ask everybody to switch over to the YouTube page. But Chris, yeah, we're here for 2024 football at the Division II level in the HBCU football world. What year is this for you? And just let folks know who you are for those of you who don't know.
Yeah, so I actually started writing way back when Winston actually went to the MEAC. I was a ghostwriter on MEAC Fans, the old MEAC Fans page. And then I took a hiatus, came back for D2Football.com since 2016. I've been writing. I can't believe it's been that long. But you learn a lot along the way, and been hanging out there ever since. And then I joined HBCU Game Day really 2 seasons ago, and been kind of contributing in various facets. I have an Instagram page. I also have a X page at D2KFerg, where you can follow me for a lot of different things throughout the season. Even in the off season, I mean, we still try to keep it engaging, fun. Football is a 24. I almost feels like 24 hours, 7 days a week. It's definitely a year-round engagement when you're looking at recruiting, who's leaving, who's staying, coaches, all that stuff. So you can kind of find me there online, where I try to keep up with as much things as going on.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. So great introduction. I see we got some folks popping up in the chat. I see we got Blue Jacket for life. Thank you, Blue Jacket. Let us know who you're representing. I do see we have a few Bears of the blue variety in the house. Let's see. We have Walter Harley, a good friend of the show. Good evening, all. Go Livingstone College Blue Bears. Yeah, we'll get to them. CIAA for life. Chanel Quick. Go Blue Bears. Who you with? LC. Yeah. There, yeah, the Blue Bears are here. Karen Griffin, nice to see HBCU news outlet focus on non-Division I world. Miss Karen, we definitely appreciate it. We couldn't do it without you. I don't know that we've ever done it without you, so let's not start it now. And Walter Hartley throwing up his SLC as well. Then we got our guy Nick Eden of HBCU, the quad. He's coming out with the quad on the new on the platform. So congratulations to him. You know him from the calendar.
I don't want to be on the calendar. Stay off the calendar.
Yeah, man. Well, so far, man, the only person from WSSU who's making the calendar right now is Stephen A. Smith. So, we'll see. We'll see. I'm trying to stay off of it as well. We got Tuskegee and Clark Atlanta in the building. Definitely got to talk about those two programs tonight, specifically Clark Atlanta. We started off the week with an interesting response to a poll. Everybody's got polls these days. We haven't dropped our D2 poll yet at HBCUGameday.com. It's calculated, but I just got to get that out. We still have actually there are no games this week for Division II football. Next week will be week 0, which is a new concept in Division II football. Yes, Karen, red turf, the Thundercats. Every time I see that field, man, I just feel like they're waiting for Lion-O and Panthro to come through. It's like the Thundercat signal. So yeah, no doubt about it. Let's see. Okay, we got it.
Can we talk about CAU for a little bit?
Oh, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there.
Okay.
We're never gonna get there. So let's start off with the predicted finishes for each league. And we will start with our friends over at the Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Association, founded in 1913, 1 year after this Colored Intercollegiate Athletic Association. So I know someone said the other day that the CIAA and the SIC were like the baby MEAC and SWAC. That's kind of like the reverse, actually. Anyway, all right, so here we go. Here are the predicted finishes from now. This is how this goes, because a lot of people don't know and a lot of people are confused. Every year, we hear people talking about who's voting to the predicted finishes, and it is the coaches and the sports information directors. So guys like Chris and myself, we do not get a voice in this. We all have a poll, so maybe that's why, but we do not get a voice in this. So at number 13, surprise, surprise, it's those highly intelligent, highly accomplished off the football men of Morehouse. Last year they managed to win a game, and then their coach got clipped. So that's just how things go down in HBCU football. Let's see. Next up, we got Lane College. We've got the Lane College Dragons, not to be confused with the Dragons of Virginia Union Lynchburg. These guys are Division II sanctioned. So the SIAC's version of LC. And then number 11, we have last year's sweetheart. This year, they're expecting them back down at the bottom. Allen University. Obviously they have a new head coach who Cedric Pearl has taken over that program after the man whose team is predicted to be number 10 by the conference, but number 4 in an HBCU poll, which is also rat poison, we learned. So, yeah. So Clark Atlanta, the other red team in the other primary red team in Division II HBCU football. Let's see, and then we got Central State, the Marauders. They had a solid 5-5 season last year. They just can't seem to get out of that bottom tier of the SIAC. Will this be the year for them? Apparently, the folks at the SIAC don't think so, but here we are. Next up, Savannah State, one of 4 schools who have that new turf, new field conditions, thanks to Arthur Blank, the owner of the Atlanta Falcons. They just went ahead and donated there. Then this is where it starts to get interesting around in this part. Then you got Kentucky State. Kentucky State is predicted to finish 7th in the CIAA, and somehow the first time we get Kendrick on here, maybe he will pop on here. We'll have to let him tell us why he thinks the 7th place team in the SIC is going to be the CIAA defending champion. That'll be interesting. Edward Waters, another team last year that kind of jumped off the page at people, caught some folks slipping. I'm talking about you, Tuskegee. I'm talking about you, Albany State. They caught them slipping. Those cardiac cats, the true cardiac cats of the SIC last year, and everybody's new flavor of the month. Okay, so we got JSU in the building as well. Okay, we love having the D1 folks in there with us too. That's what it's all about. Good stuff. All right, next up, we have Benedict. Benedict, the defending champion Benedict, is ranked 5th. They've not lost a game to an SIAC school since 2021, yet they are 5th. We know why. Chennis Berry is gone. He has left the building, headed down to Orangeburg. Next up, Tuskegee. Tuskegee, the power of the SIC, the winningest franchise in HBCU football and all of HBCU football. They're predicted to finish fourth. Last year they got this close to getting to the championship game, but just couldn't take care of it. And Miles College, the Hornet Slayers. Shout out to our guy Nick Eden if he's still watching. I know we're working on forgetting that, but I think you guys play each other again this year, right? Or maybe I'm wrong. Let me know in the chat. Then we've got Fort Valley State University. Then year 3 under Coach Sean Gibbs, who almost, maybe, sort of, kind of could be the head could have been coaching in Atlanta this weekend had things worked out the way that a lot of people thought and a lot of people expected. But we all know what has gone on down in Tallahassee has been anything but expected. So the good news and the winner in all of this clearly is Fort Valley State with Sean Gibbs. And then number 1, we've got Albany State. Albany State last year was picked to finish second. A lot of us were looking at them sideways. They had a first-year head coach. But what do you know? Hey, sometimes the predictions go out on a limb and they get it right. And Albany State ended up in the SIC championship game, taking a loss to Benedict College. Chris, I know you're specialized in so you got them a week after the OBC. Okay, I got you. And we're definitely going to get to Jada Byers for sure. But hey, Chris, as we're in the SIC, I know you're CIAA is your focus, but talk to us about what you're seeing. What are your thoughts on the league this year? First off, just give us what your thoughts on the overall strength is and what the perception is in the D2 community about these the league right now.
Yeah, the SIC is always good for a surprise when you get out of like league play, and they certainly have some challenging games to start the season, particularly when you're looking at they're right in the same footprint as the Gulf South Conference, and you have like Miles is playing West Alabama, and Albany and Valdosta are playing. They normally play each other, and so it's great first season or early season test. The problem is that when you kind of look at the strength up and down, there's not a ton of success outside of playing maybe the SWAC schools against the D2 competition. It's a little spotty. But from top to bottom, the SIC is definitely improving. Last season we saw them several teams start to sort of air it out, and I think you really need that to really start being competitive against other conferences. We talk about like Edward Waters and what they were able to do in the air in particular really stands out. And then you can't forget David Wright, who David Wright might be good for 2 or 3 interceptions a game, but he's going to match that and then some with touchdowns. And that move from Allen to Clark Atlanta is a pretty big one to see if he can replicate that success at a different school. To have somebody who can throw for that much and really is a top passer, not just in the SIC, but also really Division II wide. I mean, he is a very productive quarterback nationally, and that's a big deal because you don't always see that with the HBCUs at the Division II level. And so there's some real standouts in the SIAC for sure. It's just a matter of can one team pull it all together and really make some noise, because it does happen. It does happen where the SIAC team does make some noise outside of the conference. Can somebody do it this year is a real question mark. Anxious to see if it can happen.
Yeah, man, no doubt about it. So great stuff there. I know last year we had Quinn Gray started his career 2 tough places. He had to play against Wingate, who has not lost to an HBCU since 2012, since the first Obama administration. So hopefully we'll see that come to an end at some point soon. I don't know if they're on anybody's schedule, but they lost to them, and then they also was it Valdosta State was that their second game. Valdosta, and then they've got Valdosta again this year, as well as as well as another team that where they're going to start the season. Yeah. So they're definitely not afraid of competition for sure. And who knows? I think last year everyone was kind of wondering how Quinn Gray was going to work out, not only because he was a first year head coach, but also because he was coming from he was taking over a program that had been very much run heavy under head coach Gabe Gardenia under the previous administration, and he was able to. He kind of wanted to pass the ball a little bit more, but he worked with what he had. And 6-5 season was really great considering the start that they had. Obviously, they had some hiccups, and so yeah. So Jacoby Simmons, our guy Jacoby is in the chat as well. He says that Benedict is starting off the season 0-1. Of course, Benedict is going to meet up with Virginia State in the Hall of Fame game. We did get and I do want to ask before, because we're going to talk about this too. But out of all these teams, if you had to pick one sleeper from that bottom half to end up in the top half and competing for the championship, Chris, who's your guy? And let us know in the chat as well what you guys think too.
Oh gosh, a sleeper? Ooh. I mean, I don't know. It's a sleeper because of what happened last year, but I mean, I think the obvious choice is Clark Atlanta. When you look at the amount of production that Allen put up, and then when Teddy Keaton went over to Clark Atlanta, and some of those.
Hey guys, having a little trouble. Hey, they're saying that you're mute. They're saying that you're mute, Chris. Let's see. Nobody can hear him. I'm having trouble hearing. Chris, you want to go out and come back in?
Try now.
Okay. Now we can hear you. Okay.
Sorry.
All right. Appreciate everybody for the
sound.
sound. Appreciate everybody for the sound check. Live.
Yeah.
It happens. So you're talking about Teddy Keaton taking those guys over from the metropolis of Blythewood to the metropolis of Atlanta.
Yeah, I was talking about Teddy Keaton, and I think if you're looking at other teams, you're looking at Lane. Lane has a really standout running back, but you kind of wonder, do they have much else? And beyond that, I mean, Morehouse is just there right now. I mean, I think their focus is just elsewhere. So I think you're looking at maybe the middle, maybe like a Edward Waters, but they got some question marks after their quarterback graduated. They got some other pieces in place, and it'd be interesting to see how Coach Morgan sort of retools that particular offense in particular. But they also give up a lot of points, and they got to short the defense. If I had to pick one, it's Clark. If I had to pick another one, maybe Edward Waters, but not much more beyond that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. As we look at the SIAC, a lot to look forward to. Last year was the first year of that divisionless format for them, and it brought a lot of excitement to the league. Not everybody, but there were so many people that in the last 3 weeks still kind of sort of had a shot, and that's with a Benedict team that kind of ran away from everybody. If you take away a Benedict that was a dominant team, I mean, you're looking at, in that last week, you're looking at wide open. And now that as we take a couple of comments too, we see our friend Nick Eaton says, while he doesn't expect Coach Keaton to take the conference title this year, he certainly expects him to have a great shot at a winning season. I would say that too.
I agree.
I have learned not. And Sly, I know the school is in Columbia. not Blythewood, but I know that's where they played their games. So I will make that distinction for sure. So thank you, Sly, who's a big part of our coverage of the SIC down there in Atlanta, and I believe he is a Benedict Tiger. So I definitely would not be shocked if Clark Atlanta had not only a winning season, but if they were one of the people that kind of knocked some folks. If they were one of the people that knocked some folks that thought they're that team that's the litmus test between the contenders and the pretenders. So definitely, and Benedict College, of course, yeah, it's a interesting proposition there. Kind of like what's going on over at Florida A&M, where you're the defending champion, but so much has changed. And unlike FAMU, you don't have necessarily the continuity of someone who's been on the staff. So it's going to be really interesting. You got to feel for Benedict, man. And we'll get on this, but man, to kind of have this history that they've had, and then get a guy like Chennis Berry, and then I listened to the great Buddy Pugh the other day said that he retired not necessarily because he was ready to retire, but he saw that Chennis Berry was down the road, and he was like, man, I think could be the guy. So, man, it's great for South Carolina State, but it's kind of that catch-22 and that catch-22 for the D2 teams, where you get somebody that's really good and really hot like that, just like it's almost like you can't keep them. So yeah, and as we go to that, we'll go talk to this about the CIAA really quick. The CIAA, like the SIC, no longer having divisions. Now this is something that kind of it's not necessarily the same set of circumstances that brought it to this point, but now the CIAA, instead of going north and south as it has been for the past maybe 15, 16 years, and before that it was east and west, and they've gone back and forth because they had divisions for a long time. But Chris, let everybody know about the changes that happened as far as the CIAA for their championship game format, and what that means for the league, and then we'll get into the predicted finish after that.
Yeah, so anybody who kind of watches the CIAA has to know that one of its members has been having a lot of issues, and we're talking about St. Augustine's. So they were kind of sort of teetering for some time, and financially, and their accreditation. They went to probation, then they lost their accreditation, then they got it back. But by that point, the problem is just that if you want to show up your finances, football is a very costly sport, and they decided to pause football for their season. So they did get their accreditation back. They're still on probation, trying to get their finances together. They actually got a loan, which to me feels like a bit of a loan shark type of deal, because it was from a venture capitalist, and so they're trying to get it together, but enrollment's a real issue there. And so there's no football at St. Aug, which then left the CIAA with a kind of an interesting dilemma, because now the divisions were uneven. So they scrapped the divisions for this season. You also have another scenario, which there are only 2 out-of-conference games this year. So it's like, how do you sort of fill that void? And now you have essentially a mix where you kind of have to keep the divisions in terms of scheduling those what we used to know as crossover games. So there's technically 3 crossover games, and then the old divisional setup, and then the South Division in particular. The old South members have a bye week built into their schedules because of the loss of St. Aug. So it makes it for very, very interesting scheduling. And then, if I remember correctly, this is the last year that the conference will be in Salem for the championship game. The championship game itself will be the top 2 teams. After everything is said and done, 1 to 11, and it's the top 2 teams will go to the championship game, and since there are no divisions, it's strictly the top two teams. So to go to the championship game. So that makes it kind of interesting, especially from the fact of the North has really had a lot of strength, and there have been times where maybe the North's top two teams were really the two had the two best records. But now you still got Fayetteville State over here, and we're going to talk about some other teams that are surging in the South, and maybe some of the scheduling. But it makes for a very interesting race for to get into the top two to go to the championship game this year.
Gotcha. So if so one day in future 2036, president president slash chancellor K Ferg is in office, or do you cast the vote? Do you cast the vote to stay divisions, or go back to the old divisional format, or do you cast the vote to stay in the divisionless format?
Well, I think I really do like from a football perspective, it's better to not have divisions. But when you got to think about budgets and all of that stuff, I mean, you got to think that the division format really works out. I think the question becomes, how do you make things a little more equitable? Do you put well, if you had St. Aug, then the split would have been Shaw St. Aug and moving one of them, to the north, and maybe keep Elizabeth City in the south, and that balances things out a little bit. But I guess maybe you think about East West again. Bluefield's another one that could have moved to the south, and somebody else moved to the north. So there's a lot of things to sort of think about. Maybe go back to the East West format. But from a financial standpoint, I think you have to consider divisions. I think it just rebalancing things is kind of necessary, because the North is kind of running away from it right now. So
Yeah, I think that's an interesting discussion. I think that's an interesting discussion. I think, again, I always look at this. You look at North Carolina, where the South is, and we're just so inundated with college football programs, from the 7 FBS programs we have to the 7 FCS programs we have, then the 14 D2 programs we have. I mean, that's 28 teams playing Division I or Division II football versus, Virginia or Maryland. They don't have quite as many teams, so that's a little bit more equitable. But I definitely think it's going to be interesting, because, again, this year basically you still do have the division format. So we can talk about that all day. Sly, I mean, I know you guys like to talk about that, but I mean,
no,
really, y'all's top team, Benedict taking on Shaw last year. I mean, come on. Anyway, all right, maybe we'll touch that a little bit later. So let's get to the predicted order of finish in the CIAA, which again was established in 1912. Just a year before the SIAC. Just remember that. Okay, so let's see. We will. Owen, you did not miss it. You definitely missed the prediction on Morehouse, and it's probably good for you. Let's see. So CIAA. All right, we'll start at the bottom.
Cold.
Bluefields. We'll start at the bottom. They're salty. They're blue. They're new. Bluefield State. Bluefield State. Number 10, we got Elizabeth City State. Got the Vikings. They're there. Number 9, interesting. Livingstone College. Picked to finish number 9. Even though they picked up some wins on some of the teams that are ahead of them this year. Interesting to see. Lincoln, PA, with the preseason and reigning player of the year, Mr. Isaiah Freeman, the quarterback's got the ball in his hands. We have they're predicted to finish 8th. Then you've got Shaw, predicted to finish number 7. The Bears they have not been able to find their way to Salem. They couldn't find their way to Durham the last couple of years, even though that's where they play. And so, last year Livingstone had the Livingstone's PA announcer decided to give him directions back to Raleigh. So we will see what's going on with the Bears over in Raleigh, the Bears of the Brown persuasion. Then we've got Winston-Salem State Rams. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. WSSU predicted to finish sixth, which is interesting. They lost to a couple teams that are predicted to finish under them, kind of like Johnson C. Smith last year. Could Winston-Salem State beat the Johnson C. Smith? I don't even want to think about that. Number 5, Bowie State. Another case of the mighty not falling quite as far, but they have taken a bit of a step back at Bowie State University. 6-4 last year. We'll be interested to see how they go. Johnson C. Smith. I'd be interested to know the last time they were predicted to be finished fourth in the CIAA, but here we are. It is a brand new day. And then we've got Fayetteville State University, who has been number 1 or number 2 for the better part of a decade, but they are predicted to finish third. So it'll be interesting there. Virginia Union, the reigning CIAA champions, with Jada Byers. Yes, Jada Byers is back again. Hide your wife, hide your kids. They will be running the ball. We'll see if they can get a passing game going. And then number 1, I was a little bit surprised by this, but folks like Virginia State, those two teams met up last year, and Union had its way with VSU, but people believe in that orange and blue. So, what are your thoughts? Let's just this is your spot. So let's see, Bluefield State. I mean, what can you say about them? New coach.
The rent is due. The rent is due. Did you? I mean, that's what we were told at media day. The rent is due. When you play Bluefield State, the rent is due. All right. So I mean, but in all actuality, Bluefield, definitely has a really good returning quarterback in Isaiah Teal. So that says a lot, especially in a league that definitely has turned on the passing game quite a bit. But they did have a couple of transfers, especially on the defense. They had one that went to Winston State. And so
I saw him. Oh yeah,
yeah, and that was a kind of a big loss. And so I'm really curious to see. I think that they're going to have quite a few transfers coming in that may be an infusion of talent for them. Is it enough to get out of the basement? We will certainly see. But Bluefield was one of those. It was one of those stories in the offseason that you just kind of like, what's going on there? Because they lost their coach from last year, who helped to try to build up the program, kind of had something going on, had a lot of injuries. And that's how Isaiah Teal got going. The quarterback before him was doing pretty good things, but he got hurt. And so, I'm really curious to see how it plays out for Bluefield, but, the coaches don't have a lot of faith in them. And I'm just kind of looking with intrigue, and they certainly have a early season test with Winston State traveling there for week 0.
Well, the Rams aren't necessarily as good on the road as they are at Bowman Gray, so we'll see. That's one of the teams that put a goose egg on them last year, so we'll see. The rent is due. That's cute. So Elizabeth City State last year, guys from the 252, they looked like they had taken a step up back in 2022, and then last year they kind of came crashing back down into the Chowan River. So, what are your thoughts on ECSU?
Yeah, ECSU is another school that got hit by injuries. They had a real big standout in Quinzel Lockhart, wide receiver. He's now gone, and that was really their biggest target for offense. Well, the second biggest one was Adams Duxon, the running back. Rushed for a lot of yards, only had 1 touchdown on the season. I mean, that tells you that how good they can move the ball between the 20s, and they couldn't get much further. And so, I think, Elizabeth City, that's a rebuild job. Like, that's a multi-year rebuild job because they were left with nothing.
A decade-long rebuild job.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Decade plus.
they were left with nothing when the head coach came there, and so that's a pretty big job to rebuild. Can will they have enough patience for him to try to work through that and try to get more talent? They also have a new offensive coordinator this year, so that's another potential either obstacle or another step forward. So I mean, will they surprise some people? They surely did last year with Virginia State. So it'll be interesting. But those guys play pretty hard. But will they have enough? Especially again, passing game, not there has been much there. Will they have enough consistency to take a step forward? Be interesting this year.
Yeah. As we continue on our trip down the CIAA, we go to Livingstone. Last year, they're coming off of a 4-win season, uh, which is, by their standards, that's a step in the right direction. I think it's second 4-year season, 4-win season in a row. Second year in a row, they took down their neighbors on I-85. What do you make of the Blue Bears who play on the blue field and they should not be playing on that blue field with those blue jerseys? I'm just going to say that again. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, I
Illegal,
mean,
illegal, illegal.
I mean, it would be kind of hard to talk about the conference and not talk about Livingstone on this channel. At least, this is where we live at Heartbreak Hotel when we talk about Livingstone, both good and bad. Livingstone, not who knows? I mean, quite honestly, who knows? We won't see the roster until game day. So it's kind of hard to really tell what's going on there. Um, they found some flashes last year, which was really nice, and particularly somebody who could competently run the offense at the quarterback spot, and that was huge for them because they always have really good like skill players, but can somebody get them the ball? Can somebody help on defense? They have some pieces. Can they make the step um, to get to the next step, to get to 500? I mean, it's kind of hard to tell, but I just think that 4 wins is like good at Livingstone. That's a good season, and I know they want more, but 4 wins and one of those wins against Winston State, that's a good season. Like, yeah, I mean,
I mean,
I
that's like 3 wins to them in a row. But anyway,
well, I mean,
no.
that's a good
Well,
season.
one thing for Livingstone though, they do have 7 home games this year, Chris.
Yeah.
7 home games. They including a game against Allen. Um, all right, Livingstone, Allen. Their new program there. So you get a chance to play against them. They're going to play against Charleston. So they have so that there'll be lots of blue this year. We'll see lots of the blue turf. So there is that. We'll see if the miracle on Monroe, as their president calls it, can translate into Alumni Stadium.
I,
Uh,
let me just say one thing. Livingstone
mhm,
has a very winnable schedule, right? They can get to 5 wins with that schedule. I'm not even counting Winston State, which has turned into a bit of a toss up. I mean, that's really what last season was,
mhm.
which is that's an indication of how far Livingstone has come and how far Winston State's fallen. But beyond that, it's a very winnable schedule. I mean, look, I'm looking at Lincoln. It's kind of like the game to kind of really tell you how far they've come. They have Elizabeth City. They have Allen, VUL. I mean, even what was it last year? They played Bowie. Right. So I mean, it's like, come on, really? And Shaw, you've got Shaw on there. You got Winston State on there. I mean, this is a potentially 500 schedule, and I think it'll be interesting to see how they come out against Charleston, who's probably the top team in the Mountain East Conference this year. So
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely winnable schedule. Again, you got VUL. You got Allen, you got VUL, you know. You do have to you got Winston at home, so there's that. And then we get to Lincoln, PA. They some would claim the first. I'm not here to litigate that. Um, but they do have the number one quarterback right now in the CIAA and Isaiah Freeman. They've got Mr. Langley, I believe is his last name, as a receiver. Lincoln, PA. What do you think about this ranking, and what do you think about Lincoln?
This is a criminally underrated. This is a criminally bad ranking, in my opinion. I mean, the coaches has to know something more than what we know because yeah, all the things that Lincoln seems to be doing would seem like they would deserve, a little bit more respect, kind of like what John C. Smith got. Maybe not that high, but a little higher than 9. Um, yeah, you've got Freeman, you've got Malachi Langley, but you've also got other weapons at wide receiver. You got Tart at wide receiver, and a few other guys that at any moment they can step up. I mean, Langley is the home run hitter, but any of those guys can step up at wide receiver and really hurt you. And the defense has gotten better. The offensive line has gotten better. That used to be like they're really their Achilles heel and they couldn't do anything. It's because the offensive line. Gosh, 9 just seems really low for Lincoln. I wouldn't put him there. Um, I just have a little bit more faith in Lincoln than that. I think Lincoln may be a 500 team this year.
Okay, okay. Next up, we have Shaw. We have Shaw. Talked a little bit about them earlier. Yeah, Coach Jones. He's back again. The longest tenured coach in the CIAA. Still trying to get his guys to that CIAA championship game. There were a couple years there where they looked like they might, be ready to overtake Fayetteville State in the South, but the South is no more. So, with that being said, Shaw University at number 8. I'm sorry, at number 7. Would you have had them over Lincoln?
No,
Don't let me set you up. Well,
no,
okay.
no, no. It's too late. It's too late. It's too late. I know I'm probably
Get off
going
your
to
chest.
have some words, and I'm okay with that. I'll live with that. But, Shaw is just very hot and cold. And last year was an indication of when they got cold really quickly. Injuries. That was the name of the game. They got injured early. It was very difficult to get things going, especially on offense. Sidney Gibbs, running back, really great running back. He finished out his season doing some really great things for the school. He's gone. And so now it's like, where do you go from here? I hear great things coming from Shaw in the offseason. I'm really curious to see how it goes. I always have, moderately high hopes for them, and then something happens where it just sort of comes crashing down. Um, I think I I just really need things to break in a good way for Coach Jones because that it just seems like it's just so overdue there, and he just it just seems like just one thing after another keeps happening at Shaw. But when they start the season, it looks good. It looks good when they start the season, and it just doesn't hold up.
Yeah, well, you're looking at their schedule really quickly. You start off with ECSU, obviously a winnable game there. It'll be there in the backyard. And then they've got the game against Albany State, which is interesting. Their AD at Albany State, Dr. Christine Kelly, is used to work at St. Augustine's University, and so they were able to get that game there. We know what happened the last time Shaw faced a team from the SIC, and it wasn't pretty. They got beat to the bare necessities, but hey, it's a brand new year. So and then you got Catawba. So and then they play Lincoln, and they got Union. So yeah, interesting there. Yeah, definitely. As we're looking at the comments, definitely try to tap on those other teams as well. Then we get to number 6, Winston-Salem State University. Another team last year, 4 wins. 4 wins. Their losses, they lost 4 games in the CIAA by a total of 15 points. Chris,
Sorry.
Chris, yeah, man. WSSU number 6. They're above a couple teams that they lost to last year. Kind of like Johnson C. Smith was the year before. How are you feeling about it? How are you feeling about our Rams, man? How you feeling?
I mean, I actually am a little more optimistic this year than I probably have been recently. If I recall, Winston State actually got a few more scholarships this year to kind of help build some depth. And I think that's just been kind of the Achilles heel is, just they're a team that could get up early and it would just sort of waste away. The defense couldn't stop anybody. And it was the most points that Winston has scored per game in a season in a very long time. That was really exciting. But man, like you stayed on the roller coaster because it used to be like Fable State style. You don't score a lot of points, you don't give up a lot of points. Like you score a lot of points, you give up a lot of points. And so they got to strengthen the defensive line. I mean, that's really what that is. If they can't do that, then they're going to be stuck. Teams are just going to run the ball on them, and they can't do anything, and puts a lot of pressure on that offense. And so that's really where you want to look at to see if they can have some success. Interesting fact, transfers. So Shaw's kicker actually transferred to Winston State. We'll talk more about that, or I either write more about that. That there are quite a few transfers in the conference, and that was one of them that I kind of noticed. You kind of need that for close games to see if you can pull it out. As special teams is a difference when you start looking at the top of the conference.
Yeah, man, they got quite a few transfers from across the conference. You look at Jalen Norris, who we talked about, had 6 sacks last year, had double sacks against Bowie as well. So he's going to help out on that defensive line. Trevor Willard, who was injured in a play that was very, very questionable and just not a good play to watch last year. He's back. He is at practice. They're still kind of getting him slowly in there. They also picked up Jupe Austin, a linebacker from St. Augustine's, who was an all-conference linebacker. And then, they still got Kamar Kyle, who's as good as anybody on the defensive line, and Justin Fleming. So they got a lot of weapons. I think they're going to be better this year overall. Yeah. But the question is, will that better be good enough for them? And I'll talk more about that on WSSU Ram Nation. What's up, my boy Alonzo Turner, WSSU class of 2009 in the building. What's up? I think they're going to be better this year, but I think the schedule is more difficult. Last year, you're talking about last year they had a schedule where you've got Bluefield State that counted as a conference game. You got Elizabeth City State that counted as a conference game. And then, everything was going well. So they went up to Lincoln and, that fourth quarter where we saw some good – the
Triplet was brutal.
That third horn reared out. And so we'll see. I think they're going to be better, but they got to go – they got to play the 3 Axis powers of the North, Virginia State, Virginia Union, and Bowie State. So we shall see. But a lot of optimism over here in Winston for those guys. Of course, there's a game that they're playing against the former CIAA school, this little school across the county. But we'll talk about that another day. Let's go up to Bowie. So 6-4. Shout out to our guy Clarence of Breaking Down the Bulldogs. He puts out some really great content. I'm surprised he's not on here right now. He must not be available. But, one of my joys last year was seeing him cover his squad and the joys and the pains of that, including the loss to Livingstone. That was fun. So 6-4 last year. Bowie State, of course, they, like Winston before them, they had a run. They ran the conference and won playoff games. They're in year 3 under Coach Jackson, sitting here 5. And they're kind of at that turning point, it feels like, Chris, right? Where it's like, okay, you're a couple of years removed from having your number one, your transcendent coach. Where do you go from here? And they're picked at 5. Is that about where you figured they would be? And kind of is that where you see things going for them?
I think that's a really good spot for them. I really do. Those teams, once you get outside of the state of North Carolina, the competition really just ramps up, and that's a testament to iron sharpening iron. And Bowie State, by no means is a bad team. Um, they played very competitively out of conference. They got two really tough out of conference games this year. First against Illinois Ryan, and then Davenport in a return game that honestly they should have won last year. Um, and the one thing I'm really interested with Bowie is quarterbacks, because Jordan Morris came on later in the season. I mean, you would think that he's got to be the front runner to start this year. But the way he played and closed out the season, the offense just seemed like it was moving a lot better when he was leading the charge. And so a lot of returning pieces for Bowie. It'll be interesting to see if they can sort of return to the top. But they will have some challenges certainly along the way. But yeah, at 5, I think it's a really good spot for them.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And again, as we talked about the schedule, you talk about scheduling and who plays who. That's why I say for Winston-Salem State, I think they'll be better, but it's going to be tough to keep. The record is going to be really interesting because they play every one of the 5 teams that are ahead of them, as well as so there's not a lot of shorts there. So it's going to be really interesting. I believe Livingstone and Bowie are playing this year, though. But yeah. So now you guys got to go to PG County and deal with those rabid Bulldogs. So we'll see.
They like getting they love getting they lit back at Bowie.
They do, and they have long memories.
Yes.
Let's see. Then we've got Johnson C. Smith. So I'll be this guy. I'll be honest. Last year when I saw Johnson C. Smith was picked to finish, I think maybe 5th or 6th, I was like, Johnson C. Smith. But the guys from Beatty Ford Road, when it was all said and done, they finished right here at number 4. Which for them, they wanted to throw a parade. Some people wanted to throw a parade at Beatty Ford Road, But no, seriously, 7-4 season was really great for Johnson C. Smith. They were able to get to the Florida Bowl, Florida Beach Bowl. So I'm sorry, the Beach Bowl. They were able to get to the Beach Bowl. So again, Coach Flowers in his I think that was his 2nd year, really a big jump up, and now they're not nobody's gonna mistake them, I don't think, for the same old Johnson C. Smith. What are your thoughts about them and what they have returning?
7 wins last year was one short of the most wins that Johnson C. Smith has had in a single season. The last time that JCSU had won 8 games in a season, 1975. Like, that's what they're chasing now. So can they get there? Man, I don't know. That's a lot riding on that. And I would say to get to 8 wins, that runs through Fayetteville, quite honestly. So JCSU, Coach Mo Flowers is finding ways to get talent onto that team, continue to build up that squad. I mean, there's a lot of talent at linebacker with Ari Black. There's a lot of talent in the secondary with folks like Latrey Bass. They did some recruiting to get some more talent on offense. You lose Reggie Bryant, you still got Brevin Caldwell, though, and quite a few other pieces. The question is quarterback. That's really what it comes down to, because things were kind of going along with Tyrell Jackson, and then he got knocked out the game, had a concussion, career-ending concussion, and you feel for him. Hope he's doing all right. And then after that, they had to go with some very inexperienced signal callers. There's a competition going on at quarterback right now, including, there was a guy who was at Fayetteville State last year who's in competition at Johnson C. Smith, and I'm just like, well, wait a minute here. Like, Fayetteville State had three quarterbacks that played last year, and I don't remember this guy getting on the field. So I'm just like,
Maybe he's the
really?
next. Maybe he's the next Blueface.
No, no, no,
No, no, no,
no.
no. As in
No.
talent. Let's say that. No, no, no. We don't. No, no.
Uh,
We don't wish that on anybody. No, 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 no. I'm
but
sorry. Go
but
ahead.
but nonetheless, like, I mean, it's going to be really interesting what happens there. They certainly got their hands full. Um, week zero against Tuskegee, another top team. I know there's a lot of talk about the SISC and CIAA. We're not looking at Albany and Shaw. We're looking at JCSU and Tuskegee as the measuring stick there. Don't sit here and brag about a Shaw team that is going against the top. Like look at a much equal competition, and that's what you're going to have Sunday. That's a Sunday game. So you have your Benedict and Virginia State on one. That's another good one, and you can have your JCSU and your Tuskegee on the other one, because those are the games to watch. Week zero on Sunday. On Sunday.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we're getting into it. QB competition, the theme throughout HBCU football. Yeah, definitely. You talk about Johnson C. Smith. It's definitely gonna be interesting. They do got to go on the road to come to Bowman Gray. So TV game. So that's gonna be interesting. But definitely looking to see. They're also gonna play Morehouse as well. So they're playing. Some of the stall. Well, playing some of the great institutions of higher learning when you add Morehouse in there. So we'll get
That's a bad
to.
week. That's a bad week.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, it's a trip to Atlanta. I mean, hey, So number 3, Fayetteville State University. These guys last year were the defending champions. They made it by the skin of their teeth every week, literally every week. Literally every week, it was like they were like literally like the reverse WSSU. It was like every time there's something could go wrong for the other team, it went wrong for the other team for them. Where you talk about that Shaw game, you talk about being down to WSSU 24-7. My God. And so many other games, even that game in the rain against Virginia Union. It's they definitely it's the last year in Salem. Can they keep their streak of going to Salem alive this year? What are your thoughts?
Whew. I mean, I don't know. I mean, let's look at their schedule here. I mean, because we know it's partially favorable on the back end. But they got Elizabeth City, Virginia State, Bowie State, and then they go to Livingstone. I mean, it's a pretty decent draw. If you want to get back, that's a pretty decent draw. It's better than some of the other schools. Listen, Fayetteville State averaged 18 points a game last year and was 8-3 because they only gave up 16 points. Like, that's how good Fayetteville State's defense in particular was. They have a lot of returners coming back. There are a couple key pieces that are gone, but Fayetteville State is cardiac Broncos for a reason, year in and year out. I'm really curious special teams and what happens there. They lost Jacob Meneses to Johnson C. Smith. I don't know how that happened, but he's gone to there as a transfer. So
I
it'll be
mean,
interesting.
who wouldn't rather live in Charlotte than Fayetteville? I'm just saying, and not that I'm in love with Charlotte, but anyway, I'm sorry. Keep going.
But nonetheless, you gotta hand it off to that coaching staff and what they're able to do. It'll be really interesting to see how they pull it together again. Not expecting fireworks on offense, but expecting a pretty strong defense. And as we always say, it's another season, and there's only a couple constants: death, taxes, and a new offensive coordinator if they will stay, because that's what you have again this year. Back to you, Stephen.
Oh man, those folks over on Murchison Drive, man, they're gonna love this show. Yeah, and then we go to number two, VUU. VUU for years, they have been the team that every year you look at them and they look like okay. Every year since they've had Dr. Parker, it's like okay, yeah, this is the year. And even before then, like it's time for Virginia Union to finally rise up because until this last year, they hadn't won since 2001. Your boy was a high school sophomore. Chris, I know you were in high school as well. But they finally came through, finally broke through, and no Chawan to trip them up or anything like that, and got the CIAA championship. But they playoffs, same story. Anyway, what are your thoughts on VUU, number two in this ranking, and as they look to defend their CIAA title?
I don't know who in the world got their feelings hurt by VUU to not vote them first. I mean, there's a tradition here at this point. Whoever won the championship, they're one or two, and y'all decide to put them two. Y'all just poking the bear at this point. And y'all, I mean the coaches of the SIDs. Whoever voted VUU number two, they probably did worse. They're probably being petty about it. Anywho, Virginia Union, boy, there's a lot to talk about with them, but I'll keep it short and sweet. Jada Byers. All right, I'm done. No, I'm serious. Seriously. You got Jada Byers. You got other running backs who can do, like, they have their own style. They also can rush for over 100 yards. They actually had 3 running backs who individually rushed for over 100 yards in a game. That's how good, how deep Virginia Union is. But it's not just running backs. The defensive line, I think year after year has gotten better and better. And that's with a really strong offensive line as well. The secondary is great. Linebackers are great. Kicking game, the punter, Marvin Holmes, it continues. I don't know how he continues to fly under the radar year after year. Very underappreciated, I feel like, outside of VUU for what he does. Almost always averages 40 punts a yard, 40 yards every punt. And so I don't really understand how VU got second. I know, really, again, I keep saying this over and over again, real question mark. And the reason why I think VU is not, a sort of a giant killer outside of the conference right now is the passing game. And that wasn't quite there last year. It was not great. So, teams sort of keyed on trying to stop the run. And those teams,
Year.
yeah.
When was the last? When was the last time they had a solid passing game? It must have been Shaheed Downey back in under the previous coach. I don't know.
They had a great passing game after that. I forgot the guy's name. He was like tall and skinny guy. He did really well in the passing game as well, and they were much more balanced when Tobias Taylor was there. And then after he left, then things started to be kind of like a little shaky after that. But yeah, they had a passing game after Downey did.
Okay, yeah. It seems like they've been ready to run a wishbone for quite a while. So, which seems to work in the CIAA, but I think when you talk about D2 playoffs, and obviously you know that world a lot better than me. And I appreciate everybody for watching. Please hit the like button if you're on the YouTube as we continue to build this up. This is episode 1 of season 2. Yeah, I do think that. I wonder if. I look at a team like them and even Fayetteville State, and we'll get to VSU in a second, but do you feel like those teams are built to win in the CIAA by smacking everyone in the CIAA in the mouth? But when they get to these other schools and other conferences in the playoffs, that lack of a passing game or that over-reliance on a run game is what kind of does them in.
Yeah, the over-reliance on the run game really does hurt. And And when you're thinking about like how do you keep a team sort of off kilter, I mean, yes, you had a Harding who won the national championship, barely passing 5 times a game, but they run an option offense, and that's not really a fair comparison. Once you get beyond that, most teams in Division II that are really threats, they have both passing and running, and they can hurt you in all kinds of different ways. If you think about some of the successes that HBCUs have had, whether it's the SIC or the CIAA, it's because they also had a passing game to complement the running game and take some of the pressure off of, really truly off of the running game. And maybe you had like a dual threat quarterback, um, and or you have some degree of a passing game that really helps. So yeah, you got to have that. You got to have that to take the next level.
Yeah. I just remember seeing them play against Wingate, and they weren't able to get it done in that playoff game, and then last year they had a crossover. So number one in the CIAA, Virginia State. Last year, these guys got off to a red hot start. They beat Norfolk State. They were really running very strong, doing, in the words of their coach, Dr. Henry Frazier III, grown man things. And then they just had what looked like to be a bye week against Elizabeth City State. And all of a sudden you look over and you're like, what in the hell? VSU, Jordan Davis is gone. He's no longer there. But what do you see in them, and how do you feel about this number one ranking for them? And did the coaches kind of maybe try to put a monkey on their back?
Maybe so. I thought that like Virginia State, year two, they could really do some things if they had the same pieces that they did last year. It's kind of hard with the COVID year to really know who still got eligibility. So, for example, you had Romello Williams, who was a transfer at the quarterback spot, was really doing some great things, and he went out with the injury, and I don't know if he really has any eligibility left or not. Jordan Davis, I think he's done, and so that's a question mark. They had some folks that transferred. They had some folks that graduated. The cornerback, he got a lot of looks at the NFL level. Kevon Pope, last I checked, he went to Pembroke and he's still in transfer portal all over again. I mean, there's a lot of pieces that are gone, um, and so it's really hard to really tell what do they truly have coming back right now. And so I was just kind of like, like, do you have enough coming back to really garner that level of attention, or are we really looking at this from the fact that like in Frazier we trust? I mean, and that might be more of it. And so, um, you know, Coach Frazier's going to have a team. They're not going to be an easy out. But are they sort of like that mark of consistency right now that you kind of see at VUU or at Fayetteville State? I just don't see that right now. And even a JCSU, I just don't know. I just don't think it's there. So I was really surprised that there are other folks that are really surprised to see Virginia State first. I don't know where to put them, especially until I see a roster. I don't know where to really put them, quite honestly.
Could they be the Trojan horse? We will see. But no, that's why I call this episode a preview, but mostly guessing. There's so much of that all across the college football landscape, especially HBCU, especially in D2. So, Chris, I know we kind of talked about the SIC and the CIAA, obviously in depth with the CIAA. We'll continue as we get closer to week one next week. We'll talk about the matchups. Definitely want to give a nod to Florida Memorial, though. They are an NAIA team, and even though we hold the D2 space sacred here, we will show them some love. This is a program on the rise for sure. 6-4 last year in the NAIA. Who knows? Maybe they'll be an SIC team at some point. They're currently in the Sun Conference of the NAIA. But it's definitely interesting. They just with their making band of the year, and then also their football program, definitely a school on the rise. The folks are going to have to keep an eye on, as well as Langston. Obviously a D2 NAIA HBCU who's made some noise as well. Both of them wear orange and blue. There's a lot of that going around. Yeah, Chris, I think this was a really great first show and a great intro to it. Obviously, as we close up to week, as we get ready to week one, what are some? You kind of get. Well, I'm sorry, week zero. This is the first year that HBCUs have week zero. What are three matchups? What are three matchups that you have circled for week zero?
Oh gosh, week zero in D2 HBCU land.
I know this was not on the sheet. I know you know how.
No, that's all right. That's okay. I'm very curious to see the whole Kentucky State VUU thing. I mean, it seems like Kentucky State might have a little something for VUU, is what I hear on the streets. Whether that's really true or not, we'll see. But I don't know. Also, Winston State, Bluefield, really curious to see how that's going to pan out for them. And for both teams, really, especially with Coach Morgan's debut as a head coach. So I'm really curious on that one as well. I
hear they got a band and cheerleaders.
Ooh.
I hear they got a band and cheerleaders. That was my thing last year. They don't even have a band. They don't even have cheerleaders. Now I hear they got both. I know they got cheerleaders because they just hired their cheerleading coach, and I believe the band director is a Ram. Clearly they experienced Bowman Gray last year, so everybody wants the vibes. We get it, but that's gonna be a game for sure.
And the other one is Sunday, because you have those two really big games on Sunday, which is Benedict and Virginia State Hall of Fame game in Canton, Ohio, and then JCSU and Tuskegee. Those are two really, really pivotal games in that SIAC CIAA rivalry that we get to talk about. So I hope that we can have some more fun on this one next week, because we got smoke. We're ready for you.
Yeah, man. So we're again a week away. Week zero, we'll be starting. Please, SIDs, please, please get those rosters up. I know, hound the coaches, so we can have some more folks to highlight and talk about. But I definitely want to appreciate everybody for showing us love. Of course, my guy Alonzo, Walter Harley, representing Livingstone College, Chuck Bittner, D2 Football. We've got Owen showing love for Morehouse, of course. Of course, we can't do it without her, Miss Karen Griffin. And yes, Miss Griffin, I was in high school in 2001. How old do you think I am? Let's see. And then, so many other great folks who joined on as well. Really appreciate you guys for doing this as we continue to try to give you guys some creative content in a way that you don't get it a lot. So we will end the show. Any last words? Anything you want to plug before we end the show with our intro? And let us know what you guys thought about the intro at the NCAA football. We'll play around with it a little bit and see what we come up with. But yeah,
we're back. We're back.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let's see. So we are out. We will catch you guys on the flip side. It's SJG D2 HBCU Football.
Sleep on Livingstone if you want to, and they can really punish you for it.
Fayetteville State, they're never sexy, but they won.
Sometimes we have to eat our crow, and I got to eat my crow this week, okay?
Doom alert. Yeah, we're back at Heartbreak Hotel, and we're checking back in.